Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and get started. We are still allowing others to enter the room, and so they will be joining us as we get started. But I'd like to take a moment to welcome you to the Center of Excellence for Infant and Early Childhood Mental Health Consultations Conference, Equity from the Start. We had an excellent session this morning with Dr. Shivers, and I am pleased to continue this journey with you. My name is Mariam Kerbouche, and I will serve as your session moderator. I am joined today by Monique Francis, who will serve as our technical host. This session is being recorded. The transcription will be available through the Zoom platform. And should you have any questions, please feel free to relay your questions to the chat. We will have time at the end of the session for question and answers with our presenter, Dr. Amita Parker. That said, I'd like to pass it over to Dr. Parker, who will be conducting this workshop.
Thank you, Mariam. I'm really excited to be with you all today. This conference has already been amazing, and I'm really pumped, and I feel really grateful to be in this space with you. We are going to start with some grounding. And yes, if you want to turn your camera on so I can see you and not talk to the black screen, feel free. It's good to see you all. We'll start with the grounding. It'll be 1 minute. And during that 1 minute time, what you'll do is just breathe, because like Dr. Shiver said, breathing is radical, right? It is a part of the work. It is a way of grounding ourselves in the work. And it is a way of bringing us fully into the space so that we can learn and grow and dialogue together. So for 1 minute at a time, I'll ask you to just breathe, starting now. Well done. I needed that breath. Thank you all for joining me with that. As you see, the objectives of our session are listed here. I'm going to be sharing with you a research poem, and it's really beautiful that I get to follow Eva in, really, I think because of the fact that she spoke to the importance of us learning and growing and engaging in different practices to advance equity, to get to those deep, creative, exploratory kinds of thoughts and feelings, and to do that together. And I think that spoken word and poetry are one of those avenues that really are really rooted in communities of color, especially as a practice to rest in, to give us a voice, and our activism is embedded in poetry and spoken word. And so I'm really excited to share that with you all today. And I'll ask that you all be thinking about a solution or something that you might do going forward after this discussion. Now, I do like to center and ground myself in this conversation and discussion. And so I start with the fact that I am a Black mother. I identify as a Black person who is a descendant of slaves. My people were brought here forcibly, and I stand on the shoulders of giants. And I draw from them great wisdom and strength. And I just truly want to honor my people, my ancestry, my history, because they have created the space for me to be here with you today. I live in Wyandotte County, Kansas. So I know all of y'all are coming from all across the world. And in the area where I live, the Wyandotte peoples were the original stewards of this land. And I want to honor them and also lift up their struggle into being in this space. They were forcibly removed from their lands. And this picture is capturing the journey to this space. But I too have Native blood, and I'm continuing to discover and learn more about that ancestry and history. And I just think it's important for us to acknowledge where we reside, because it really is a part of us. And it's important for us to lift up in these discussions about equity and social justice and just everything that's a part of this conversation. So as we get into the discussion, I want to ask you all a question. I have a poll for you all, and I want you all to answer this question. Do you interact with Black or African American mothers in your personal or professional work? And Monique, can you launch the poll for me, please? I'm not sure if it's launched or not.
I am unable to launch the poll right now. Someone else has used my password to log in on another device. I apologize.
Interesting.
I know. I apologize.
Let me see if I can
for
do
that.
it. No problem. See if I can do it.
It is launched.
All right. Okay, perfect. It's going. Yes. Thank you all for participating. This is anonymous, just asking just to get a feel for who in the room is interacting with Black mothers in their personal, professional worlds, because that's important. The researcher in me would love to get the highest percentage possible, but for the sake of time, I will end the poll at 85. Sounds good, percent participation. And share the results. As you can see, most of us are working with or have interacted with Black mothers. And I think that that's really important, and some have not, and that's important as well. I think that as we think about what are the best solutions or strategies to be supportive as an infant early childhood mental health consultation field, right? I think first it's important for us to consider our relationships with Black women and Black birthing persons. And also, if we don't have experiences with them, what does that mean, right? What is real relationships? We value relationships, right? But what does that mean if we don't have real relationships with Black mothers at this time? Thank you for your support with that muting. So I want to start this conversation with really just highlighting some issues, right? Like, I think that's part of the discussion is recognizing that there is an issue. Mental health disparities are the differences in need, access to services, experiences, and outcomes. And like Eva, I'm tired of talking about the negative risk factors and the negative consequences. I think that most of us are well versed and knowledgeable about that, but I do also recognize that some folks are not. And so studies for decades have shown that Black mothers with young children have been experiencing race-based disparities, and mental health, just like in other specific areas, it is an issue. We know that Black mothers in many studies have talked about higher rates of stress and depressive symptoms and adverse experiences and experiences with discrimination, and also that their children have shared, not their children, the research shows that Black children have been experiencing some social emotional delays and concerns around their behavior. And so there are these issues. And then additionally, there are issues reported related to access to services. And the access to service piece is really one that's really fascinating for me and one that I'm really passionate about, because we know some about access, meaning like folks having access to formal mental health services, for example. That's one side of the story, right? Can somebody get to formal mental health services if they desire it? Do they have insurance? Do they have the ability to pay? Do they have transportation? Is there childcare, right? Those are some of the access issues that I'm sure many of you are helping families navigate in your work. But the other part of the access issue that we don't know enough about is choice. What do people prefer? What do people find as a safe and supportive service or resource? We need to know more about that. But the other part of this story that we really know a lot about is that there are some negative effects of these mental health disparities, and they're showing that it lasts across the lifespan. Now, I wanted to ask you all, what do you think some of the causes are of some of the maternal mental health, Black maternal mental health concerns that we see? And I'd love for you to share that in the chat, because we know that there are multiple factors, right, that are causing these concerns. And just want to get a feel from y'all. What do y'all think? What are some of the causes for the less likely to access formal services, less likely to have positive experiences when they engage in services? The fact that Black mothers are more likely to experience more severe, chronic, and debilitating symptoms, and then be more likely to die prematurely. So yeah, I see some folks talking about trust and generational trauma, intergenerational trauma, microaggressions. Yes, this piece, Keisha, around being strong, right? So strong that you don't need support. History of harm in healthcare. I see the piece around fear and judgment. I think when I see that, I think about fear of losing your child because you are struggling with your mental health, or maybe even if you have some substance issues, right? Let's see, what else do we have? Yeah, lack of providers, right? Lack of providers of color, cultural incompetence. There's so many things, being unprepared, being embarrassed, stigma. Folks talk a lot about stigma. Research is an area of I think it is a cause of some of the ambivalence about participating in research, but also engaging with formal systems of care. So thank you all for sharing that. Sometimes spirituality and lacking support. So there's all these factors, right? And when I think about the things that you all have contributed here to this discussion, it makes me think about the social determinants of health and how there are many factors that do indeed determine health and mental health. And I think that this piece with the structural and systemic racism that kind of like is an outer circle, it really does encapsulate this piece that I think has been missing in our field. Like, our field has begun to acknowledge the role of systemic and structural racism causing the conditions in which folks would be experiencing more mental health concerns. But I think that like this is all newer or newish, and I just want to acknowledge like how Eva and Dr. Rosemary Allen, Dr. Eva Shivers, let me get it right, and Dr. Rosemary Allen and other folks have come into this infant early childhood mental health space and really got us on a path of acknowledging the harm and also better understanding the relationship to systemic and structural racism and how that impacts the lives of folks. I shared in the chat an article that I like that talks about systemic and structural racism and how it is a part of the social determinants of health, and then that it is creating the conditions that creates and maintains disparities. That for me is really critical as I think about the why, because there's this narrative that Black mothers are the cause of the challenges that their children face. So where Black maternal mental health is an issue, there are also studies that show that children are struggling in terms of like experiencing delays of development and having behavioral challenges of different kinds. And this is a really negative narrative that projects that Black mothers are the cause of their children's challenges. And I can't stand it because those same studies talk about those social determinants, and they just don't elevate the ways in which systemic and structural racism is what creates and maintains these differences. And I think that that's what I want you all to, sit with as I move the conversation forward, that we should not be blaming Black mothers for these issues. Formal mental health services, in promoting it as the best and only practice, is problematic, and we gotta address that. And when I look at the literature in general, right, and Black maternal health is kind of like a puzzle of sorts, where there are all these pieces, some that we know a lot about and others we don't know as much about. And while we have done a lot of focus on formal mental health supports, we don't know enough from Black mothers and their lived experiences about these cultural factors, community supports, informal supports, and their strengths that really is part of what we need to know more about to go forward, because I think our analysis of the issue is flawed. And I think part of that is because we focus so heavily on the risk factors and ACEs and some of the barriers to formal support, because we have been living in and elevating formal services as the best and only approach. So I wrote a paper. I'm gonna put a link to it in a chat, not because I'm just trying to promote myself, but just because I think that my paper is helpful. And if you're interested in this discussion, you might find my paper helpful, because I do lay out the literature and lay out the way that we're currently looking at and talking about Black mothers. And I also elevate the importance of us not moving away from the piece around the risk factors that have been documented for decades, but to elevate and amplify the supports that Black mothers have already indicated are important to their wellness. So in my research, I created a poem. I interviewed Black mothers in Wyandotte County, where I live, in to capture the findings and also elevate their voices and lived experiences, created a poem. And this poem is used, or will be used, as a tool for our reflection today. You all have the opportunity to listen to the poem and also to reflect and then dialogue with your colleagues about it. And I'm really excited because I think that, while the first end of this presentation has really been what I would call kind of traditional in format, this is the part that I'm really excited about, because I think we need to share research in new ways. We need to share opportunities to dialogue about these critical issues in different ways as well. We need to think and feel and be with these experiences and not really avoid them. So this poem, the spoken word piece, will be spoken by my sister, a Black mother of 3 Black boys. And over the next few minutes, you'll hear her voice. And as you listen to her voice, I ask that you be thinking about what solutions you hear or things that you're interested in exploring more or doing, what you're feeling in this space. So pay attention to that.
When asked about my mental health, I replied, I had it until apparently I didn't. I was stressed at an all-time high, and I cried. I thought I was going to die. Pressure from every direction, it's a lot, all the time. Because of that, you just get tired, period, of life. Just feeling heavy all the time. When asked about supports for my mental health, there were many things that came to mind. I have some that are like a root to my life, like the people in my life and God. They have supported me during tough times. But sometimes the support is stressful, and I'm trying to keep my stress levels low. It's just almost easier for me to just not talk to anybody. Pretty much every time I talk to someone, it ends up turning into a conversation about them. Either way I go, I'm stressed, I guess. Honestly, I don't know how much I trust most. Embarrassed and feeling almost naked, I really, really rarely want to ask for help. This is part of the reason I keep it to myself. I don't trust a lot of people just to be talking to them. That's from a lot of experience, yet I need help. I need to calm down. I need help with the kids. I need time. I need rest. I wanted to try some kind of therapy, coaching group, or something, but it is a struggle to find someone or something Black, while I prefer Black women. I can work with someone non judgmental, a good listener, and in tune with being Black. If you're going to support me full heartedly. You can be more supportive than just asking, "How are you?" I like when people say, "If there's anything I can get you, let me know." Or say, "What can I do to help you?" I feel like people skip that sometimes. I need you to understand. You have to ask me, "How are you?" a couple of times. Then be okay that I might say, "I'm okay. What the fuck do you want?" To me, social support is people that can help, but it's not guaranteed. When was the last time somebody said, "Well, can I get you something? Can I cook you something for dinner today? Do you want us to take the kids for a weekend?" Sure. Knock yourself out. Get in where you fit in. Just help me. I try to do self-time. It's hard. I'm constantly doing something. It's just always something going on. That's just how it is. If I could just have more me time, that would help my mental health. I need time, period. Just time to listen to music, time to cook, or time to be lounging, whatever. That stuff is common to me. To recharge, that is what I need. Add time. Help that is more understanding and not draining, more open minded and not judging. When my mental health is at a bad place, I'm really kind of vulnerable. Trying to deal with stuff on your own, that's a real headache too. But I'm learning to do self and ask for help. And I'm really trying to be in tune and intentional about the choices I'm making. Now, what will you do? Need ideas? Here are a few. If there was some type of support groups for moms, that would be so helpful. What about a mental health life coach? Is there such a thing? Someone that can guide me? You know what I'm saying? Maybe like a talk line to call if you feel like you're stressed. Someone who could be there for anyone, anytime, anywhere. When I'm on E, I can't think. So I need someone who can tell me what I have to do. I don't have time to jump through hoops. Last thing, maybe some trainings. I feel like there is a huge need for some training on how to be more gentle, open, accepting, and not judging. Get in where you fit in. Just help me. When asked about my mental health,
I want to just honor my sister and thank her publicly for speaking spoken wording that for me, I always feel it every time I hear her say it. Now you're probably thinking some things and some feelings may have come up, and I hope you have a piece of paper out or a document that you can jot some of these thoughts down. We're going to give you a couple minutes here, a few minutes anyways, to sit with your thoughts and feelings, write things down that are coming up for you, and use the questions that I have listed here as a guide for some questions that you could be thinking about during this time. Now, we are also going to be going into breakouts where you'll have the opportunity to dialogue with some colleagues about these pieces, but in the spirit of my own internal processing and creating a space for folks who need the quiet or the pause, I want to create that before we go into the breakout room space. And so you will have some quiet. I ask that you look at these questions and answer them or think about them or write it down, whatever fits your learning style. And then we will be going into breakouts. And in the breakouts, you can quickly introduce yourself and then share some things that are coming up for you that you feel comfortable about sharing, especially the last 2 questions, because there will only be 10 minutes in the breakout. So I will pause and give that quiet now. And just 1 more minute of quiet. I can see those ones in the chat probably are the ones who are active processors. We will go into the breakout. So in 1 minute, I'll ask my moderator to go ahead and launch the breakouts. And actually, you can go ahead and launch them, and those who are more active processors, go ahead into the space. All right. I think we have a few more seconds, and then we are there. Good to see you. Oh, I see some faces. Yay. Okay, let's come off camera if you can and want to as we come back. Yay. I hate just looking at the screen, y'all. And it means so much to me to see the people here. This is awesome. Well, welcome back, y'all. I hope that, let me see when everybody gets back. All right, I think we're all back. And I see y'all. This is beautiful, just seeing your faces. It makes my heart happy. So you all had the opportunity to connect and dialogue about the poem, right? And making sense of the entire discussion. And, you know, I really, more than anything, would love to invite anyone who wants to share any thoughts aloud to do so in this space. And additionally, if you have any questions, please put those in the chat so that then we can discuss those before we close. Anybody want to share any reflections as we come back into this larger group space?
I can share.
Perfect.
One thing that came up often was just like us being like underrepresented, and us like how it's so important to see another Black person and to have the conversation with them to get them to understand the importance of mental health, because it's really hard to have like that trust when you feel like someone doesn't understand where you come from, right, or who you are. So that was one thing that came up often. And just talking about, even with just other cultures, you know, that they kind of confide in us too, because they're like, oh, like they see us reflected in them also. And just coming from a place sometime when you're speaking to parents and, you know, our providers and things, not being just like a specialist, right? I'm coming as a person and saying, hey, I've been there. I'm still there. I live where you live. Like, you know, just being a real person about it. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That is so important. I see Giselle, right?
Yep.
So there are three people in my group, and I'm from DC. The other two were from Ohio and Oklahoma. And so I think part of our discussion, well, we're trying to figure out if more people are joining. So I think we shorted ourselves. Part of our discussion was what our three different societies look like. And then looking at some of the things that you mentioned earlier, access, knowing about resources, who you're getting those resources from. Even here in DC, we have an organization called the Breastfeeding Center, and I work in early intervention, so I would hear moms rave about this place and just talk about it. I've never heard anybody say anything bad about it. And I had the opportunity to use their services. And I was just like, what do people who are not in DC use? Like, this place is amazing. And so, what might be somewhere isn't somewhere else, and it's just not fair.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think like identifying what are those trusted spaces is so important in expanding our conceptions of it being a formal mental health setting. Just because there is a mental health or behavioral health challenge is so important. I remember folks talking about pastors and talking about support groups and communities and, all these things that were not on my referral list. And I think that now more than ever, it's so important for us to expand our ideas about what supports for mental health can be, because they can look different in different communities. And also, like, as you listen to the voices of Black mothers in this study and maybe others, there are some other creative and innovative ways that folks are responding to mental health challenges. And why not share that information with other folks who might find it helpful? Would anybody else like to share?
I would if I could. I kind of piggyback off of what a lot of said, and so for our group, we just talked about, because I serve in East St. Louis, Illinois, so there's a big stigmatism of Black mothers. But even listening to it as a Black mother of three myself, it made you reflect, because like I had a rough morning this morning, and as she was talking, I'm like, she just talking to how I'm feeling right now, and like in the present moment. But a lot of things we talked about is that we have to find a trusted place. We have to find a place. And I was just saying, because I work for a Head Start program, that I'm going to share this with our staff so they can, because we predominantly serve a lot of African Americans. And this is the conversation that we heard from a lot of the mothers, is that a lot of our mental health consultants and a lot of the programs are from others that do not look like us. So when we do connect, if you decide to hotline me, because I'm worried about a systematic approach. I'm scared about if you're going to say I'm unfit or if I'm going to have to fight for my child when I'm just expressing myself. So I feel like your poem will open doors for for us to realize that it's okay. But then also you made me think about, I have a parent group outside of my job. It's like sharing, like, what do you need? Like, I think the question that she said the most is, we can create all the programs and systems that we think are great, but we need to allow them to be open and transparent and tell us what they need, and then find a way to create it based on the programs that we have to meet those needs. So I applaud you and I say thank you, because I needed this morning as a mom, but
That's
also
what's up.
as someone that's helping moms and who has a heart for
Yes.
moms, that it's okay and that they need to hear all the words and all the things that you said. And I will be sharing this and the other resources to our staff to just make sure that we continue to create a platform for moms to be heard. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It really warms my heart, because that's the intention. Every mom who is so real with me and expressed their real concerns and real experiences in amazing, I feel like, feasible and doable solutions, like to be in a space where I can lift up their voices, and that I can share these strategies or ideas with you all that I hope you'll consider testing out or exploring in your own communities, because I think that it's to start a conversation, right? To ask ourselves better questions. I don't want to lose sight of the piece you mentioned about what happens when they begin to share their experiences, and that piece around child welfare and the threat of harm in being authentic and transparent, and recognizing that we cannot share our stuff with everyone, but how can we create a space where folks can share their experiences? And how can we change mandated reporting and the bias that is baked into that system, right? That makes it not supportive in some respects and more harmful. Catherine, I see your hand, and I also want to say before we get towards our closing, right? Please put your next step or action in the chat, because accountability in a space like this is really what's going to help us move from just having a conversation into doing something. So please share one intention that you have, and then I'll go ahead and ask you, Catherine, to share your question or comment.
Thank you. I found this very, very helpful. And I love the idea of like putting research, in my small group, we talked about putting research into a way more accessible format was so helpful, because like, I don't read whole things. I never like get through it all. And it was so nice to just hear like people's real impressions. And I felt like the two things that really stuck out to me were get in where you fit in, really resonated with me, because I felt like we're just like, I'm a mom of 2 young children, and I heard over and over again that refrain of like, I got too much going on. Like, I can't get there. I need you to come in where I need you. And to that led to me to think a lot about like the thing that I want to do better as a provider is listen and not try to make a solution. Like, just like, I think as moms, people, and people are trying to solve problems all day long. So like just having someone listen. I'm trying to think of that. There's like some saying that's like, don't just act, like do nothing or something. It's like something like that, where it's like, I just heard that again and again, that like, don't add, I don't want to add solutions. I just want to hear someone where they really are. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing. Listening is so important. And I'm mindful of the time, right? And we're at our time together. I do thank you all for sharing what your next step is, and those who have spoken aloud and shared aloud, and those who have shared in chat. Before I close, I just want to just thank the mothers who participated in my study, and I was a part of that work too, right, as a Black mother, but I can't underestimate the fact that it is their voices and their experiences that are on this platform. And I am humbled and honored to be in this space with you all to share it. And I hope that you all find it helpful. I wish you all well. And is there anything else that we need to say before closing?
This time frame was way too short. That's what I had.
Do we need to fill out the survey? Is there a survey that goes with this?
That's a great question. And I'm not sure. So,
okay.
Yes, the survey launched to you and you should see it.
Oh, there's a survey now.
Where is it at?
No, it'll come after, I believe, is what I understand.
There's one on the website.
Oh, on Accelerate, or what is the platform?
Yeah, to the CVent on the right side next to where your presentation is.
Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, I don't know if y'all have somewhere else to go next, but if anybody else has any other questions or comments for me, I can stick around for a minute. But
I have one question. How do we find you? Are you on any of platforms, or is your email address located anywhere?
Yeah, I think I'll put it in the chat.
Okay.
I am somewhere. No, I'm just playing. I'm like, if you spell my name right, that's the one thing that gets folks, right? And
okay.
then you'll be able to get to me. And it is Amita, but there are some extra letters there. And I work at Georgetown in the Center for Child Health and Human Development. I do work on the National Center for Health, Behavioral Health, and Safety that works with Head Start. And I also am a research evaluator on a DC Health doula project. I do a whole lot of other things. I'm in service with the Kansas City Association for Black Social Workers and Kansas Association for Infant and Early Childhood Mental Health. I'm on the Alliance for Infant and Early Childhood Mental Health board. And so I do a lot of things And also I do training consultation independently as well. And most of the time that's focused on racial equity. And I really do want to create more spaces that we can do things like this, like have conversations and dialogues and use non-traditional means, poetry, and that embodied work that Eva was talking about. Like, I really think that's where it's at. That's going to move our field forward. It's going to help people learn in new ways, because our traditional ways of sharing information and learning and talking, it just doesn't work. And so we got to do stuff different. And I'm really interested in continuing to create those kinds of spaces.
Thank you. I will connect with you. I enjoyed you and Eva. It was really great to hear you from you.
That's what's up.
Have a great one.
Thank you. You too. Thank you all for joining.
Hey, I'm in DC, right with you. I'm surprised you're not in community already with each other. I'm Chioma. I was kind of stuck between rooms here. Now, I'm wondering, so are you a social worker? Is that
yes?
Field? So I'm very much involved in, school-based mental health, which doesn't in DC, and it's a big deal because it's this comprehensive system in the school systems here that doesn't effectively include birth to 3, right, or perinatal, right, in its visioning of a comprehensive system of care for young people in schools or young people. And I'm wondering, how does the field of social work, primarily which the school mental health system is focused on, declinicalize its way? Like, I think a big part of how we don't think about like what we're supposed to do with poetry and other things is because kind of stuck in that clinical mindset, right? So I don't know if we have time, but I definitely got your email. I'm hit you up because we're in community with each other, and I want to get close to you because we're like on so many same levels. But we've been hosting community baby showers. I'd love for you to be a part of that. I'm emailing you anything to say right now. I'd love to hear. Yeah.
Perfect. And you know what? That is a whole nother conversation, but an important one, because I think in social work, we have to get back to the fact that like we have been for so many years trying to like elevate ourselves as this professional practice. So we started out community-based and grassroots and multidisciplinary, and we didn't care what our title was. We were just about the work. And there was so much work to do that we were all getting in where we were fitting in that integration of supports and communities, and pastors were at the table, and folks leading support groups were at the table, and folks who was doing the individual work with folks with substance use and addiction stuff was at the table. I mean, I think we've gotten away from that focus on the multi-level work over time in the spirit of trying to in the spirit of professionalization for money. Like economic purposes are the reasons why we focus so heavily on clinical now and don't emphasize enough of the other kinds of supports in that continuum. Like we talk about the continuum, but we don't show our emphasis and the importance of it because we're just pushing folks clinical because that's where the money is at. So economics, really. That's what it comes down to. But that's a great conversation to elevate at the national level. NASW and National Association for Black Social Work has been talking about it.
Thank you all so much. This has been a wonderful conversation. I'm so hating to be the one to have to close this down. Sorry, Amita. Thank you.
I know, right?
Terrible.
I did not find the survey. When I went to it, it said session was over and I couldn't access the survey.
If you click if you look to the very right of your attendee hub, there's a polls and a survey on the very, very right hand side. What I can do quickly is share my screen because we do want you to see that there is a survey and to give us feedback on the session as well as the rest of the sessions that you will participate in. If you can see my screen over here, I am circling the survey.
And I click that, it says it won't let me, it's not lit up, it's not emboldened, so it